Hi everyone, I'm Draven. Thank you so much for coming to see my next video. Thank you all for the love and support that you have shown me from the last one. I have to warn you, this one's going to be a little harder for me to read, so please bear with me. Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the hardest parts of my journey to wellness. It took a suicide attempt in May for one single provider to finally hear me. And since then I've had to learn firsthand about all of the diagnoses that I have always had, that I never knew about, and that I never could have. But I'll have to take you back in time. You'll quickly see how moments in time literally froze my mind in them. I'm going to talk about separation anxiety disorder, reactive attachment disorder, and part of my CPTSD. I was neither wanted nor loved before I was even born. I was told a lot of false truths about my birth father to protect me from the actual truth. I knew my birth mother drank, smoked, and did drugs with me when I was inside her. I knew she abused me. She would slap me on the back anytime I would cry. To this day, there is a spot on my back that is sensitive to touch. I can't have anything by my nose. She used to push dirty diapers in my face like I was a dog, ashamed of its mess. I knew that she herself was never raised properly. She had no idea what to do with a baby. She would stiff arm hold me to move me from place to place. I was on no set sleeping or eating schedule because she wasn't. There was no nurturing, no breastfeeding, no bonding. There wasn't even hugs and kisses. I also knew that my own birth mother tried to kill me. Charges could never be pressed as the witness was deemed unreliable due to her prior history and possible drug use. But there is zero doubt that her story is true. She heard me crying, came upstairs, and found my birth mother with a pillow over me. I wondered my entire whole life, why didn't she just abort me? There was many times that I wish she had. Again, I knew I was not wanted. I knew I was not loved. In birth, I only knew pain and resentment. This year, I found out why. My birth mother was being raped by her own father since she was 13. She had me at 18, and her father was the only one she had ever had sex with. I am her father's child, and it now makes perfect sense why I was neither wanted nor loved. While it doesn't justify what she did, I do forgive her and hold empathy in my heart for her, because that's a pain no human should ever have to know. I am both a victim of sexual abuse and rape, both in my childhood and adulthood. My empathy for her is as deep as it gets. This brings me to my adoption. At 5 months old, my birth mother took me to the foster agency. My mom, i.e. my adoptive mom, was there that day. Staff at the foster agency described me as a corpse of a baby. There was no eye contact, there was no smiling, no laughing, no movement. I was just there, dead inside. Even my mom said that I didn't look like a normal child. She asked my birth mother if she could hold me. She agreed. When my mom touched me, my whole being lit up like a Christmas tree. I laughed, I smiled, I held her hand, and I looked her in the eyes. And that's because I was 5 months old before my entire being even knew what love was, or felt like, or looked like. For 14 months, all I had known was pain, resentment, and hate. But in that moment that I felt love, my brain, my being, my entire essence got split in two. Though rightfully so, I was separated from my birth mother, and for that I got separation anxiety disorder. My brain knew she was gone and went scrambling, searching for her. My anxiety lasted over 5 weeks after initially being taken home by my mom. For 5 weeks, my hands were in tight fists, my whole body was stiff, my abdomen was so tight that I was projectile vomiting. My mom had to take me to the ER several times for this. Separation anxiety was only half the problem. I also got reactive attachment disorder by being adopted. My brain knew that mom isn't mom. She's an imposter. It's not her voice, her touch, and it's certainly not her love. So my brain and being could not accept love. And that continued for 42 years. These two disorders served as the foundation for the lifelong CPTSD that I have. CPTSD is where both my body dysmorphia and suicidal behavior disorder originated from. All of this while also having been born with autism and ADHD. All of this before I was even 1 year old. My brain didn't stand a fighting chance against the world around it. You may remember from my first video, there are numerous parts of the brain affected by the disorders that I have. But the one they all have in common is the prefrontal lobe and the prefrontal cortex. The PFL and the PFC were greatly stunted in growth from the shockwave it was dealt at such an early age. I began literally getting frozen in time. This area of the brain controls dopamine. Most of our willpower is managed by dopamine regulation, and I had very little of it. It's also where executive function is controlled. Speech and communication are directly affected by their output. And for me, the most damaging was this. The PFC acts as the brain's brake. It stops normal people from doing things like lying, cheating, or stealing. My brake went straight to the floor. I know I did bad things, and I could never understand why. I've always known and held in my heart that I'm a good person. It was literally killing me inside to do all the things that I've done in my past. My whole being split in two from the time I was born. My mind and my body were engaged in a deep war within themselves from the literal beginning of my life. I was sick. I was very, very sick. So much so that I attempted to take my own life 6 times, 4 of which occurred this year. I will talk about my autism and ADHD in the next video and what they mean and meant for me, as they too have played a huge part in shaping who I am today. All of this, however, is why my traumatic breakup in May was so catastrophic for me. For 42 years, my brain, my being, neither felt love nor felt worthy of receiving love. On Christmas Day last year, I fell in love for the first time in my life. Now, please understand, this doesn't make the love I felt or held inside me for anyone else any less real. I did the best I could to the best of my abilities, or in some cases, disabilities. What happened to me in December, however, was life-changing. My whole being lit up like a Christmas tree from the moment I saw her, just as it had when my mom first held me. I felt the love that my entire being had been searching and longed for 42 years. But just as it had with my mom, my brain split in two. My brain finally found its perfect way to not only self-sabotage, but self-destruct. That button was pushed the moment I even said hello to her, and I had no idea it was happening. You'll also see in a future video why I had no idea it was happening. But from my traumatic start to life, these disorders would flood my mind and body with painful stimuli anytime the pleasure sensors were engaged. It was like being shot by a taser every single time. Being good physically and mentally hurt me. Being bad physically and mentally hurt me. Everything hurt all the time. I began to unknowingly and unwillingly push her away. The more I got afraid of losing her, the more that phenomenon would happen. I'll talk more about it in my ADHD video, but I also have something known as rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. This too played a factor in all of it. Life stressors outside of my relationship were causing a catastrophic breakdown in me. And my brain took the one good thing in my life and did what it did best. It committed the self-sabotage of all self-sabotages. Not once, but twice. In all of this, the woman that I want nothing more than to spend the rest of my life with left me. 24 hours later, my self-sabotage turned to self-destruct, and I made an almost successful attempt to end my life. And while I will discuss this in future videos, the heartache I felt over what I had done to her and others in my past, fueled by the cancerous sickness inside of me, set off the chain of events that caused me to have 3 more suicide attempts this year. Before those parts of my brain lit up in May, I was not capable of changing my life in the ways that I have needed to, and the ways that I have in the last 4 months. Now that I'm capable, I've done everything I can to make the most of it. I've literally begged dozens of providers for help before. No one, not one, saw me. Not one heard me, and not one ever listened to me. My entire life would have been different had I been properly diagnosed, treated, and medicated. The last 4 months are proof positive of that. I want to thank you all for coming and taking the time to watch this. Thank you all for hearing me. Thank you all for seeing me. And thank you all for listening to me. The real me. The me I really am. Not what my disorders made me out to be. I close my video as I did my last. If my illness caused you hurt or pain, I am painfully aware that I hurt you. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so deeply and heartfully sorry.